Welcome to Beekeeping Today podcast presented by Bee Culture. Beekeeping Today podcast is your source for beekeeping news, information, and entertainment. I'm Jeff Ott.
And I'm Kim Flatham.
Hey, Jeff and Kim. Today's sponsor is Global Patties. They're a family-operated business that manufactures protein supplement patties for honeybees. It's a good time to think about honeybee nutrition. Feeding your hives protein supplement patties will ensure that they produce strong and healthy colonies by increasing brood production and overall honey flow. Now is a great time to consider what type of patty is right for your area and your honeybees. Global offers a variety of standard patties as well as custom patties to meet your needs. No matter where you are, Global is ready to serve you out of their manufacturing plants in Airdrie, Alberta, and in Butte, Montana, or from distribution depots across the continent. Visit them today at www.globalpatties.com.
Thanks, Sherry, and thank you, Global Patties. You know, each week we get to talk about how much we appreciate our sponsor support, and we know you'd rather we get right to talking about beekeeping. However, our great sponsors are critical to help making all of this happen. From the transcripts, the hosting fees, the software, the hardware, the microphones, the subscriptions, the recorders, they enable each episode. So with that, thanks to Bee Culture Magazine for continuing their presenting sponsorship of this podcast. Bee Culture has been the magazine for American beekeeping since 1873. Subscribe to Bee Culture today. Hey everybody, thanks for joining us. We're really happy you're here. Before we get started, just a quick reminder to subscribe or follow Beekeeping Today podcast and give us a 5-star rating. It really does help. Also, we are now adding complete transcripts of each episode on the website after the show notes. Check them out. You can also leave questions and comments online under each show. You can leave a comment, ask a question, reply to a question, ours or our listeners. Click on Leave a Comment at the top of the episode's show notes to join the discussion. Have you listened to an episode and thought, that person sounds really interesting, and I'd like to know more about them? Well, now you can. Each episode links to a guest profile. Each profile has a guest photo, bio, contact information, including Instagram and Twitter details if they have them. Check it out. And finally, share the podcast with your beekeeping friends, email them links, or mention it at your next beekeeper meeting. Hey, everybody, thanks again for listening. We know you have many different podcasts to choose from, and we're really honored you've chosen to spend the next several minutes with us. I hope your first week of summer is going well. How are your bees handling the heat? We're hearing reports of honey being pulled across the Midwest, and confidentially, Kim reported that his colonies have 3 mediums of honey each. Wow. How about water? Do you know where your bees are getting water? I was asked by Dr. Jim Tu to join him on the Honeybee Obscura podcast last week while Kim was away to talk about honeybees and water. It is a fun discussion that I hope you listen to. In fact, Honeybee Obscura has 79 episodes available to download. I'm sure you'll find many different topics that stimulate your beekeeping mind. We have a great show lined up for you today with 2 different guests. First up, we have Maya Ajmera, the CEO for the Society of Science. Each year, they sponsor a contest for high school seniors from around the United States, including the U.S. territories, to submit science projects for review. Now, this isn't any old just high school's contest. The first place senior receives $250,000. Wow. Now, this in itself is pretty cool. But why is she a guest? Because our main guest today is Amara Orth, the 18-year-old newly graduated high school senior from Council Bluffs, Iowa. Her science project involved recording the sounds of the hive and determining its current health through special artificial intelligence code she wrote specifically for that purpose. Wow, that's impressive. Amara comes from a family of commercial beekeepers, and it is her grandfather who inspired her when they were out inspecting bees when he said, "Hey, Amara, those bees don't sound quite right. I wonder what's going on." No, he didn't sound like that. I'm sure he's very cool, had a very good voice. Listen to hear how Amara placed in this very prestigious science contest featuring her research using honeybees. Okay, let's get right to our conversation with Maya and the Society for Science. Welcome, Maya, to Beekeeping Today podcast. In a few moments, Kim and I will be talking with one of the finalists of this year's Regeneron Science Talent Search, Amara Orth. about her competition project that she submitted. Can you tell us a little bit about the Society for Science and about the Regeneron Science Talent Search?
Sure. So it's a pleasure to be with you on this really fun, interesting podcast. I am the president and CEO of the Society for Science and publisher of Science News. And the Society for Science was founded 100 years ago. And it was founded by E.W. Scripps and William Ritter. And the reason they founded it is because they were very worried about what they were reading in newspapers about three-legged Martians. They wanted to create and build evidence-based science journalism. So they founded Science News. And that's still going 100 years later. But in 1942, they really were very worried about talent, really for young people to go out and discover and research on all kinds of extraordinary discoveries out there. And this talent would then be our generation of scientists and engineers and entrepreneurs in our country. And so it was founded as Science Talent Search. For the first 50 years, it was called Westinghouse Science Talent Search. 25 years later, it was Intel. And then after that, Regeneron, the biotech company, became our sponsor 7 years ago. So the Regeneron Science Talent Search really searches for the best scientific talent and leadership in the country.
At the high school level?
Yes. They are seniors only, but they may have been doing the research over high school or during the summers. And they go through a very intensive process of applications, turning in a research paper. And we get about 1,800 applications. Wow. We have judges from around the country. And they whittle it to the top 300 scholars. And those top 300 are whittled to 40 finalists. And Amara was one of those finalists this year. She also competed in the Regeneron International Science and Engineering Fair, which is the largest pre-collegiate STEM competition in the world as well. So Amara competed in both, and she is an extraordinary young person.
And you mentioned STEM, and that's the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics.
That's correct.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great program. How does a high school student, junior, or decide and enter the competition on a local level?
It's an open funnel. Any kid can apply. They just need to know about it, right? So we work with STEM teachers throughout the country. We have a suite of outreach and equity programs. We want to make sure that every young person can become a scientist or engineer if that's what they want to do. So we've created a suite of these programs, from a mentorship program called the Advocate Program to high school research teachers conferences to STEM action and research grants. And that in itself then goes at the grassroots and really gives young people the information that they need to be able to compete in this competition.
The selection process is highly competitive, as you said.
That's correct.
So how does that work from a local level, from a local high school to perhaps a regional, down to you said the 300?
So it's all gone to the national level. So anybody who applies gets to the national level. Those 1,800 applications are looked at with judges from across the country. And those judges then look at those 1,800 and whittle it down to the top 300. And then we bring an acclaimed group of judges to Washington, D.C. and lock them up for 4 days. And then they go through the top 300 and go through and select the top 40 finalists who come to Washington, D.C. and spend a week. And then they go through a very intensive interview process. And what's interesting about that is that we're very interested in scientific leadership. So if Amara, for example, her project is about bees, they may ask her a lot of physics questions or mathematics questions. They're really looking for that well-rounded scientific leader, not only that has great research, but is also really understanding and fascinated by science and everything that is science and engineering.
Where can students find out more information about entering into this competition?
You just need to go to societyforscience.org and just scroll down and you'll see Regeneron Science Talent Search. And you press that button and you'll find out everything you need to know. The application deadline is in early November.
Does the project need to be completed by early November or well on the way?
Well, there's no project that's ever completed, right?
Yeah.
So there's no research project that's ever completed, but there is a place where I feel like I have good data to present or not so good data to present, but I've gone through the research exploration of a question I'm trying to answer, and I have something to say about it. And that's important. So I think the student makes that decision with their mentor or teacher as to when that stopping point is. When is a good time to let the world know?
I applaud what you're doing. I applaud the projects you do and opportunities you're giving to the young people to explore, learn how to think, and be critical thinkers, and present their findings in a logical and straightforward fashion. This is a great program.
I would also like to say that
Please.
Amara's project is not the first project in researching bees. This is a very popular topic with our students. So, just a couple of years ago, we had a young woman named Raina Jane who did a project on bees. She was a 2020 Science Talent Search finalist, the Regeneron Science Talent Search finalist. And she is extraordinary. And her work was actually featured in Bee Culture magazine.
Right.
So she's just fabulous. And she also founded Queen Bee, wellness supplements infused with honeybee byproducts when a pollinator tree is planted for every bottle sold.
Oh, wow.
And she's recently been launched at Whole Foods Market.
Oh,
So,
fantastic.
It's pretty extraordinary, right?
Yeah, it is. Bee Culture is our key sponsor of the podcast.
Oh, wonderful.
So
Yeah.
we'll have to look that up. Thank you for joining us on today's episode. We look forward to talking to Amara. And in the future, be looking forward to talking to you about other science projects that come to you about bees, beekeeping, pollination. We cover the gambit here at Beekeeping Today podcast. And, and again, I applaud what you're doing, especially, I don't know, sometimes it seems like science is under fire these days. This is really good work. Thank you so much for doing it.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Hey, beekeepers! Many times during the year, honeybees encounter scarcity of floral sources. As good beekeepers, we feed our bees artificial diets of protein and carbohydrates to keep them going during those stressful times. What is missing, though, are key components. The good microbes necessary for a bee to digest the food and convert it into metabolic energy. Only Super DFM honeybee by strong microbials can provide the necessary microbes to optimally convert the artificial diet into energy necessary for improving longevity, reproduction, immunity, and much more. Super DFM honeybee is an all-natural probiotic supplement for your honeybees. Find it at strongmicrobials.com or at fine bee supply stores everywhere.
While you're at the Strong Microbial site, make sure you click on and subscribe to The Hive, their regular newsletter full of interesting facts and product updates. Welcome back to the show. Sitting across the virtual Zoom Beekeeping Today podcast table is Amara Orth, and she is from Council Bluffs, Iowa. She is a freshly graduated senior from high school, and her science project will blow your mind. Amara, welcome to Beekeeping Today podcast.
Hi, guys. Thank you for inviting me on your show today.
It's a pleasure having you.
It's nice to meet you, Amara.
Yeah. Amara, your project is an award-winning project. It's not just any old project. It's an award-winning project. We will have links, just heads up to folks. You will want to check out the video links to Amara's project. Amara, I know that you come from a family of beekeepers. Why don't you just kind of introduce yourself to the listeners and let them know about your background and your families?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Amara Orth. I'm from Council Bluffs, Iowa. I grew up on a honeybee farm. My family raises about 50 colonies, and my grandparents are commercial beekeepers with about 2,000 colonies.
Wow.
So for my project, should I go through that or should I wait for that?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So, well, tell us what was the purpose of the project? Why,
Okay.
yeah. What's a little bit about the background on the project?
Okay. So my project was inspired by this past, I guess almost 2 years ago. I was talking to my grandpa. I was trying to come up with a project. And then my grandpa said something. He was like, the bees sound a little different today. And I thought to myself, I wonder if there is truly a way I can go into the hive and kind of see how the sounds that the bees make can kind of be indicators of the health. So I started my project in early 2020 during the COVID lockdown, and all the universities near me were closed. And so I had to try to come up with a project I could do at home that wouldn't take very many materials. And so it took almost 2 years of trial and error to kind of get the right microphone, the right setup. And I didn't have very much coding experience. So during my lockdown, I kind of had to teach myself how to code and just to get the right setup and everything. And so I finally was able this year to get the right setup and the right microphone to be able to get data I could use.
Wow. I mean, this is just an intro, but I'm amazed that you spent your COVID lockdown years working on this instead of perfecting your TikTok videos. This is something amazing. I like this.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, you said your parents have about 25 colonies, and it sounds like you spend some good part of your time working with them, right?
Yeah.
How long have you been working bees? Your whole life?
My family started raising our own colonies back in about 2015, but I've kind of been involved with bees ever since I was really little. I can remember when I was probably about 5 years old, we would visit my grandparents' house. I just remember being fascinated with the bees and being like, I wonder if someday I could truly be in the colonies and kind of tinker with them to see if I could make research projects to kind of help them out.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Yes. One of the things that I'm wondering, back up a half a step, the contest that you entered is run by, who has sponsored this contest?
Is sponsored by the Regeneron, but also the Society for Science. So it's called the Regeneron Science Talent Search. Okay, and how did you find out about it? My mom was actually a finalist in the Regeneron Science Talent Search back in, I think it was 1999, and she placed, I think she got 4th place. And so she was like, I think you should try out for this science competition. You can get a lot of scholarship money with it. And it was just a truly fascinating, incredible experience for her. And so she wanted me to kind of see if I could get in there too. And so it was a lot of fun. It was really cool to meet other really talented scientists like myself that are working on these incredible projects.
Oh, that is so cool.
One of the things on the webpage, Jeff, if you notice it, were I want to say the top 10 winners and what the projects that they did. And you were 9th on that list, if I recall.
Yes, I was.
That's out of. Do you have any idea how many people entered that contest?
I think it was somewhere around 2,000 people nationwide. Wow. And then they made it to the top 300. And then out of the top 300, they did the top 40 that got to go to Washington, D.C. and compete for the top award of $250,000. And
what was your reward for placing 9th?
I got $50,000.
That's going to go a long way paying for college, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, we're kind of jumping to the end, but where do you want to go to school?
I'm actually attending Stanford this fall. I'm going to major in Earth systems, so it's kind of like environmental science.
Congratulations, Stanford.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, I'm kind of flabbergasted. I'm kind of half torn between wanting to hear more and just feeling sorry for myself for my wasted high school years. So it's, I'm just teasing. So tell us about your project. So you sit there and you say, boy, these bees are making different sounds. Grandpa's even heard it. What was your first step? What did you do first?
So first was trying to figure out what microphone to use. I first started with, it's called a shotgun microphone. It's like a cylindrical microphone. Mm-hmm. And I originally tried using that microphone, but I found it picked up too much background noise, like our chickens and like airplanes and the wind, everything would just be part of it. So I was like, I got to find the right microphone. So after trying like probably dozens of different microphones, I finally landed on, it's called a piezo microphone or a shotgun microphone. It's like a flat dish-shaped microphone that I could just put in the top of the hive so the lid could go on. I wouldn't have to like open it up in the winter to expose all the cold air to the bees. But After that, then my next step after that was trying to figure out how long I should record. I originally tried thinking of doing like a 24-hour surveillance, but that took a lot of storage space. So it's like, oh, maybe not. So I went to 15 minutes and I still found that was too long. So then I ended up doing a 5-minute recording about 3 times a day. So I'd do in the morning at 7 a.m. and then around lunchtime or so. And then I'd do it in the evening. Mm-hmm. And then after I had those recordings, then I had to figure out how I was going to process the data. So originally I tried looking at spectrograms, which are kind of visual outputs of the audio file, mm-hmm. but it's just kind of colorful lines essentially. So I was like, I can't exactly isolate individual variables because for example, wing beat harmonics, I tried looking at that, but I found that isolating the individual variables kind of made it so the overall kind of processing was really difficult and the data wasn't really useful. So then I was like, I think I have to use machine learning. So I was like, oh my goodness, how am I going to do this? I don't have any coding experience. And my project's one of the first ones that uses this machine learning early warning kind of detection for bees. And so I took a lot of research on different articles that kind of did it for, I believe it was whales and birds and other animals. And so I eventually found the right machine learning system to use. It's called hidden Markov models.
Wait, let's say that again. Hidden, HIDDEN.
Yep. Hidden Markov. It's MARKOV.
Okay, hidden Markov.
Yep. Right. And then I found that the hidden Markov models are also, it's abbreviated to HMMs. I found that they had fewer false positive rates compared to other machine learning models, and it was overall easier to use and kind of fit the sound of the bees a bit better. It was less a lot of the other models were very linear, and it didn't really match the sounds of the bees. And so after I decided on the hidden Markov model, I had to kind of train the model. So for that, to collect my data, I first started with a colony health state assessment. So for this, I would go into the hive and I would determine one of eventually 9 health states that I kind of tested for. So it'd be queen right broodless, queen right honey flow, virgin queen, volatile chemical exposure. So for that, the bees were given a non-toxic mite treatment called formic acid. Mm-hmm. And then I did queenless, dwindling hive, robbing dwindling hive, and then robbing no hive. So I would assess for one of those 9 health states. And then I would go into the sound collection. So then I would record the audio for 5 minutes, and the microphone was connected to a sound acquisition kind of thing called a Scarlett 18i20, which is a sound interface. And then it was connected to a computer running the application Audacity. And then in Audacity, I would label the audio file with the identified health state. And then I would train the hidden Markov model using, it's called train HTK command. So it's one of the lines of codes to produce 9 different directories or health states. And then it's a lot of steps. And then I would call upon those directories to help recognize unknown audio files using another command called recognize HTK to produce an annotated label file. So for this, it would be kind of a spreadsheet, and I would look for the highest number of occurrences for the different health states. And so the audio file that had the highest number of occurrences of these different health states, that would be the identified health state.
And so why did this only take you 2 years? I'm just kidding. Well, wait, let's go. I mean, that's amazing. And what you're doing is phenomenal. I want to go back though, because I just kind of get tripped over some of the technology. So the microphone, was it what kind of frequency range were you listening for? Were you just looking at for the 20 to 20,000 megahertz, or did you try to go outside the human hearing?
I believe the shotgun microphone or the piezo microphone rather, had a range of about like 100 to 16 kilohertz. So like 100 hertz to 16 kilohertz. And so I found that range picked up the bee noises, but not the super high or low frequency background noises, unlike the shotgun microphone.
Okay. Kim, did you catch that?
I am just listening, Jeff, because this is over my head. My listening to bees goes as far as taking off the cover, and I'm enjoying listening to this. I don't understand a lot of it just because I don't have training in this, but the story you're telling is amazing. The things that you're looking for and the things that you were measuring. And if I recall, the data you were collecting allowed you to be somewhere over 90% accurate in terms of predicting what was going on in the hive?
Yes. So the training was 92% accurate with the training files, and it was 100% accurate. Or no, it was 100% accurate with the training files and 92% accurate with the unknown files.
I wish I could be 92% accurate in anything, let alone listening what's going on in a beehive.
Get your high-quality licensed beekeeping equipment at Better Bee. As the United States distributor for Lyson, Better Bee is proud to offer honey extractors that range in size from holding 2 to 88 frames, insulated polystyrene hives and nuke boxes, wax and honey processing equipment, and over 250 styles of licensed, highly rated, and easy-to-use silicone candle molds. Visit betterbee.com to learn more and shop for high-quality licensed products.
Visit Better Bee today, your partners in better beekeeping.
You were working with your parents' 25 hives, and it sounds like from what you said, you set up a colony to be queen right or being robbed. You made the colonies fit and then measured the sound so that you could say, okay, this sound says this colony is queen right. Is that kind of how this worked?
Sort of. I would. It was rather like my mom. She grew up on a honeybee farm, so she knew all these different health states by heart. So we didn't necessarily alter the hives to have these health states. We would just go into the hive and identify what we thought was the best health state. And sometimes the model would kind of correct us. It'd be like, oh, it's actually not queen right. It's actually queenless. And we're like, why does it say it's queenless? And then the colony died a few weeks later. So it sometimes corrected us, but we'd look into the hive and see, we'd go through and see what the health state was. And so some of them were easier to train than others. I originally started with just 2 health states, so doing queen right and queenless. And then as I had more data, I was able to kind of correct it and get the right health state, and kind of branch out to eventually get 9 different health states.
Yeah, that the things you were looking at were listed on the release that they put out, and like I said, I'm impressed. But it's good you had a beekeeper working with you, so you had 2 minds working on identifying what the colonies were doing. So it wasn't maybe; it was pretty sure that this is a queen right colony getting ready to swarm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. And so you were just worked with the 25 hives that your parents have. That was your whole data set.
Yeah, that's all I was able to get done. But I kind of hope to do more hives in the future. I'm actually my mom and I are actually working. We're leaving for New Zealand in about 24 days. My mom, she does honeybee microbiology research at Creighton University in Omaha, Nebraska. Oh. And she got the opportunity to continue her research in New Zealand to look at varroa mites. And she was telling them about my research, and they're actually really interested in it. So I might have the opportunity to do some of my sound collection on the hives in New Zealand. And also we're trying to get some kind of control group of my grandparents' hives as well.
Oh, well, we have quite a few listeners in New Zealand, so you'll arrive down there. They'll already know a lot about what you've done.
We've also learned along those lines that from our guests that there's different dialect differences you'll have to retrain your AI to recognize the different dialects for the New Zealand bees.
Yeah.
And that's fun. That is so fun.
Amara, you collected all of these sounds and you began to be able to recognize them. How can that help me?
Yeah. So how it works is that it tells you what the health state is. So sometimes as a beekeeper, you look at your hive and you're like, I wonder what the health state is. I see that the bees are declining, and there might not be a clear way for you to know what's wrong with your hive. You might have some like indications like, oh, I see like a group of dead bees outside the hive. Maybe there was pesticide exposure or something. But sometimes it's really difficult to know what the health is. And especially in the wintertime when it's cold, it's really difficult to open up the hive because then you're letting out all the warmth inside the hive. So my machine learning model can tell beekeepers what the health state of their hives are, sometimes before it's even visible to them. So it allows beekeepers to know what's wrong with their hive and allow them to take mitigation strategies to protect their hives before their hives collapse.
So you got a microphone in a beehive, and does it live there all the time, or do you move them around, or how does that work?
It kind of depends on like the setup that like if you as a beekeeper would be using, but you can keep it inside the hive. That's what I had done. I had quite a few different microphones just hanging out of like all my 25 hives. So you just like walk and you're like, I wonder what's over there. But we had I had all the microphones like inside the hive, and I kept them there. And they had a pretty long like range that they were good for. So they probably were active for about like 4 months, and then we had to replace them because of like health issue, like the health of the microphone kind of deteriorated. But overall, they're able to withstand all the weather conditions for about like 4 months or so.
So the microphone's in the beehive, and you only listened for a short period of time, morning, afternoon, and evening, and that's the data you collected. How does the data get from the microphone to your computer?
I would record. I had like the microphone was connected to a couple different cables that eventually lead it up to the computer. So a few different cables that ran up to the computer. And then on my computer, I had an app open that would record the audio for the 5 minutes. And then after I record the 5-minute recording on the computer, I would save it as a certain file with like the label that I gave it that told it, oh, this is a queen right hive. And then I would then go into the machine learning model on my computer, and I would do the different training commands.
So each of these microphones is hardwired?
Yeah.
Does the technology exist? Well, I'm asking a question I know the answer to. That a microphone could transmit data to your cell phone?
Yeah, so I'm trying, like, my next step for my project is to have a public platform for beekeepers around the world to be able to upload their audio and get the results. So I'm eventually hoping to get like an application on your phone that you could hook up the microphone to. That'd be like my ideal next step.
Yeah.
So it'd be wireless then. And I could walk into a bee yard and my phone would pick up data from the hive that I pointed it at?
I mean, I don't think I'm quite to the step of being wireless. I would be kind of hooked up, kind of like how you have your headphones on your iPhone. It'd be kind of like that sort of setup.
Jeff, have you ever tried anything like this?
Yes, actually, I have. Not at all like Amara's doing, but I'm sure you've heard in your preparation and research before you started your project, you probably read about Dr. Jerry Bromenshank out of the University of Montana and his work with sound and bees. And he has the app, and we've had him on the podcast that does much the same, but he uses a mobile device, Android or iPhone, and just shoves it in the front and records 60 seconds of sound. And I don't know the current status of that project, or if you've had any correspondence with him on and preparing your project. Have you?
No, I wasn't. I didn't get any. I wasn't really able to find very much public information on his stuff.
I would think that you would benefit. Well, he would probably benefit from your research, and it'd be a great collaborative resource to look into at some point. But yeah, this is really exciting. And were you listening? Do you know, were you listening primarily to the wing vibrations, or were there other sounds the bees were making that you were picking up?
I originally tried just isolating those like individual sounds, but I eventually just decided to do like all the noises that the bees are making to kind of train the model using the like all the noise. And
you might have said this early on, and I apologize if I didn't catch it. Was one of your models level of varroa infestation?
I hope to get that in the future. It's kind of difficult to kind of train for the varroa mite levels. It takes a lot of, you have to like have the screening thing, like the screen to catch the mites at the bottom of the hive. But that's like my ideal next step, is to try to connect the vibroacoustic data to the varroa mite levels, because that's something that my grandpa was really interested in, because he has a lot of varroa mite issues with his hives, and he really wanted to see if there was a correlation between the acoustic patterns and the varroa mites.
Absolutely. The varroa and even small hive beetle for the areas of the country that have to deal with that. Boy, this sounds like an exciting project. So your next step is New Zealand, and an experiment in New Zealand, and see where that takes you. And then in the fall, I assume, Stanford?
Yep.
And have they expressed interest in what you've done in the project?
Yeah, I was talking. I did get a few emails talking about someone doing acoustic work at Stanford, but I'm also working with this company out of Wisconsin. They look at the temperature and the weight data of the hive, and I'm trying to work with them to get my acoustic data part of their technology as well, so that the beekeepers can get not only the temperature and the weight of their hive, but also the acoustical aspect to kind of draw it all in together.
Nice. We happen to know that company very well. They're good folks there. Well, this is really exciting. So besides going to New Zealand, what else are on your plans for the summer? You have anything besides bees in New Zealand?
No, not really. My family's going to be in the South Island of New Zealand. They're going to be staying there for a year. So
wow,
I'm really excited to be able to explore and go bungee jumping. I'm quite excited about
that. Well, the audio sound of that would probably be really fun too, just to analyze that and train your app for fear. This is the sound of abject fear. All right. Is there anything we haven't asked you that you'd like to tell us about your project? I mean, there's so many aspects of it. I want to make sure we cover what you wanted to cover.
I think other than just making sure I highlighted everything so that people can understand it. Sometimes I get kind of lost in all the technical aspects that I don't quite make it down to everyday person level. I make it too fancy.
Well, the one question I wanted to ask you is, what was the biggest thing that you learned in this project?
Biggest thing I think I learned was the unique aspects that you can hear from the bees. So one of my favorite parts of doing my project was going out to my family's hives and putting on the headphones and kind of just listening to the sounds the bees were making. It gave me goosebumps, kind of hearing how the bees sounded, especially at night. I could hear these different unique clicking noises that the bees were making. So just being able to listen to the bees and hearing how they sounded, especially before a storm or just in general at night, in the day, it was just a magical feeling, kind of hearing how they sounded.
And the biggest thing you learned? Biggest takeaway?
Just that I feel the biggest thing I learned was that you can hear the different health states of the bees. I didn't really know that you could actually highlight the unique aspects of the sound bees are making to be able to get the health state. I never knew that there was that much depth in the sound that the bees are making, so you could highlight the health aspects. So that was truly when I finally got it this year and I was able to map out my data. On my board, one of my favorite graphs shows a collective swarm that my family got in early August, and it showed the health slowly transition to queenless, and then queen, then robbing, no hive, and it was just truly fascinating to be able to be wow, I can actually use machine learning to get the health state of the hive, And you can draw this much information from the sounds that the bees are making to be able to kind of create a graph to see the health. That was truly a fascinating part for me.
And I'll bet your grandpa can do it without any help. Longtime beekeepers, I've known a lot of them over the years, and sound and smell of a hive, they're pretty right on about what's going on just because they've been in so many for so long. But you picked it up after 2 years, so that's a lot easier and a lot faster.
Yeah.
I like the Rosetta Stone that you've developed with the audio. I look forward to hearing big things about your project and future growth of the work that you've started and you've created here. It's really fun.
Thank you.
Amara, thank you for joining us on Beekeeping Today podcast. Learned a lot from you, and I think it'll be fun for you in the coming months, coming years. Good luck at Stanford.
Thank you.
Yeah. And congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, that was really invigorating. I enjoyed talking with Amara. She is really on the ball.
Yeah, the next generation. But I'll tell you something, the thing that I found comforting was that she was introduced to her project by her grandfather saying the bees sound different today. And people who've been keeping bees for lots and lots of years know that something sounds different, know that something smells different when they open a beehive. So I like the way it started. It started feet on the ground and then it got technical, but it started with somebody with experience with bees. That was nice.
Yeah. And then someone else hearing that and saying, yeah, what can I do? That's a great thought. And then having the drive and the ability to pick it up and take it somewhere. And that's exciting.
Take it a long ways and do it well. $50,000. That's a nice prize.
That is a nice prize. And like I told her, it just really puts my senior year to shame. I think I was playing guitar on a street corner somewhere.
Well, look, you ended up okay.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Well, that about wraps it up for this episode. Before we go, I want to encourage our listeners to rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, wherever you download and stream the show. Your vote helps other beekeepers find us quicker. Even better, write a review and let other beekeepers looking for a new podcast know what you like. You can get there directly from our website by clicking on reviews along the top of any web page. As always, we thank Bee Culture, the magazine for American beekeeping, for their continued support of Beekeeping Today podcast. We want to thank our regular episode sponsor, Global Patties. Check them out at globalpatties.com. Thanks to Strong Microbials for their support of this podcast. Check out their probiotic line at strongmicrobials.com. We want to thank Better Bee for their longtime support. Check out all their great beekeeping supplies at betterbee.com. Thanks to Northern Bee Books for their support of Bee Books Old New with Kim Flodham. Check out all of their books at northernbeebooks.co.uk. And finally, and most importantly, we want to thank you, the Beekeeping Today podcast listener, for joining us on the show. Feel free to leave us comments and questions at Leave a Comment section under each episode on the website. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks a lot, everybody.